Welcome to Barry Smith Fishing, and I have a little secret for you. So, the water's starting to get a bit of colour in it, and don't tell anyone, but people are starting to use pellets, but shh, it's between me and you. So what I thought I would do is I would talk you through my pellet waggler setup, from rod, reel, line, terminal tackle, and let you into my world, because that's the style of fishing I like to do the most. So we'll start off with rods. Okay, so first of all, we have this rod. Now this is the rod that I use. It's a Maver Genesis Pro 11 foot pellet waggler rod. Now, 11 foot for me is the optimum kind of length for a rod for pellet waggler fishing, and I'll explain to you why I use an 11 foot rod as opposed to a 12 foot rod or even a 13 foot rod. I think with anything above 11 foot there's too much bounce in the tip, and I like to fish at distance. I think with an 11 foot rod it's an ideal rod for me to be able to sling out, say, a 16 gram pellet waggler float at, say, Larford Lakes as an example, or Boddington's. So for me, the perfect pellet waggler rod is an 11 foot rod, and that Maver Genesis Pro that I use is an amazing rod. So also I always kind of incorporate pellet waggler with bomb and pellet, so I'll never fish one method without the other. And I just thought I'd show you my bomb and pellet rod as well. So this bomb and pellet rod is a 10 foot rod, and it's exactly the same. It's a Maver Genesis Pro, but this is 10 foot. And the reason why I like this 10 foot rod is, and it took some getting used to if I'm being honest, but this 10 foot rod has got complete through action. It hasn't got kind of a springy tip, so I've got a lot of beef right from the reel all the way through to the rod. Not only that, I can get fish under my rod tip fairly quickly. So that's the two rods that I use. Identical rods, except one's half a metre bigger, and that's it. So in terms of reels, what do we use for reels? Well, it would be no surprise to say that I have two reels that are absolutely identical, and these are Dio and Match Winner reels. This is a 3000 series, it's 3012, it's a QDA, and it's got a quick drag system, and it's got high impact line clip, and everyone thinks, oh my god, what does all that mean? Well, I'll tell you what it means exactly in a nutshell. The quick drag system means that with one turn it can be as loose as anything, and with one turn it can be locked more or less. So you don't need to be turning it loads to lock it or to open it. Half a turn and it's loose, turn and it's solid again. So that's the quick drag system. High impact line clip, I don't know whether you can see this, but this line clip, the line clips on, and basically there's a bit of bounce in the line clip, and I hope you can see that. And basically what that means is that serves a couple of purposes. If you're casting, say, to a feature and you overcast and there's too much power in it, well, that little bit of bounce in a line clip will stop you breaking off. But also if you're fishing at, say, 40 turns or 12 wraps or however you want to measure it, and you cast out and you forget to take your line clip off, you hit a fish and it goes on a run, when it hits that clip it's less likely to snap you off, give you more opportunity to take the line off the clip. So it's a fantastic reel. I've used this all last year on pellet waggler and bomber pellets, and I wouldn't be without it. It's an amazing reel. Yeah, it costs probably in excess of 120 quid, but I'm a great believer in the more you cast, the more fish you'll get with a pellet waggler. If I'm fishing next to someone and I cast 100 times and he casts 50, then I will catch more fish than him, because every time you cast with a pellet waggler you've got an opportunity to catch a fish. So you really need a mechanism that's going to help you do that, and I think the reel is probably one of the most important key elements in pellet waggler fishing. Okay, next, line. What line do I use? Well, I used this all last year, and these two spools which I bought the other day, which are going to go on these reels, is all I'll use for the whole of the summer period. So this is Guru Pulse in 5 pound and 8 pound, and I'll tell you what the diameter is now. The diameter for 8 pound is 0.25 mil, and the diameter for 5 pound is 0.21 mil. Why do I like this line? And it is maybe a bit more expensive, but the reason why I like this line is twofold really. First of all, the diameter versus the break and strain is amazing, and secondly, there's virtually no memory in this line whatsoever. So it's not forgiving at all. As soon as you pick the rod up, you're into the fish. It's as near as damn it as you can get to braid as you can. Fantastic line. Really good for distance fishing, and I like to fish distance. So this is the line for me. Okay, in terms of what goes on the line, so if you can imagine, this is my line and this is my setup. This is exactly how I would have it. So I have a American snap swivel on the line. This is actually the one I've got on here is a Maver brand, and Maver stops, float stops either side, and they're the small variety. And I found with the 5 pound and 8 pound Guru Pulse, the Maver small float stops are absolutely perfect. Now if you notice, I've only got 2 on here. It's worth noting that if I know I'm fishing at distance, I'll put a second float stop on the end where my hook length's going to go. So my second float, so my hook length will be here, my second float stop will be here, and the reason for that is if I'm chucking a 16 gram waggler, I don't want it to slip down the line, so a second float stop here will do. I'm a great believer in the less you can have on the line the better. If I can get away with just 2 stops, then so be it, that's what I'll use. And that is simply my setup. So in terms of hook lengths, what do I use for hook lengths? Alright, and it's as simple as this, doesn't get any simpler, and it's what I used all last year for all my fishing. So I use Guru, it's QM1s, and I've got sizes ranging from 12 all the way up to 18s in Guru QM1. These are already banded, and these are 15-inch hair rigs up with a band. And the next connotation of that really would be exactly the same, but with a speed stop on. And I use this if I'm gonna present something like a 10 milli boilie, or I wanted to put some corn on a hair rig. This is perfect for the job. And that is what I use for pellet waggler fishing. In terms of floats, it's as simple as this. So many times I see guys pellet waggler fishing and they use the same float all the time. I'm a great believer in swapping and changing for the conditions, or maybe even just to mug the fish. If I'm constantly using, let's say for example, I don't know, if I'm constantly using this pellet waggler float and I'm catching fish and all of a sudden the fish get wise to it, if I just put on the same size float but maybe in black and slimmer and a bit longer, then that could add the difference. If I get a bit of chop on the water and I need the float to be even longer, I might choose just a longer variation. I might take the tip off, put a different colour tip on. All sorts of things can make a difference. But I think what's important is having a variation of floats. And I guess, don't be afraid to go big, because this float is a carrier. It carries your pellets, and that's what it's supposed to do. So don't be afraid to use big floats. A lot of people think, oh, small is great. You'll see some guys fishing pellet waggler and they're using this size float. And you got someone sat next to them fishing 20 metres past when the fish have pushed out. You're never going to get there with this. So you need to have a variation of all floats. And I guess another thing that for me is important is this is a little box I have, and it's got all my different colour tips in. It's got all different size weights in it, so I can modify the float. I very rarely put a float on when I'm pellet waggler fishing and end up with that same float exactly how I put it on. I'll normally chop and change it until it's right for them conditions. And that is a whistle-stop tour of my pellet waggler fishing. Hope you enjoyed it. Please do me a favour and subscribe to my channel. There'll be plenty more where this come from. Speak to you soon.